So we are now into a brand new year, Dave. 2024 has hit us. We've left 2023 in the dust. But let's have a quick recap, to be fair, of our best and worst of 2023. So, what films and TV shows we liked, what films and TV shows we thought were rubbish. I've definitely got a few more on my worst list than I've got on my best list. I think with everything that was going on last year, 2024 is going to be a more interesting year because of all the delays from the writers and actors strike. So, what we get in terms of quantity and quality this year is going to be an interesting one. But let's have a quick recap of the last year then. So I'm going to hit you straight off with one of my absolute personal favourites, and this will be no shock to anyone that this appears as probably my favourite film of 2023, Godzilla Minus One. We obviously recapped that an episode or two ago ourselves. So yeah, fantastic film, terrifying Godzilla. Has led me down a rabbit hole of looking into more Godzilla stuff, to be fair. So, great story. One of those rare monster films that the human element you actually cared about at the same time. So, I think it's up there as well. I think when I was looking at in my research for this, it was rated in the top 3 or 4 in IMDb rated films of 2023.
Love
so, definitely up there as a deserving one. What about yourself? What have you got on your list?
Yeah, I will just real quick when you said it got you looking into more Godzilla stuff. Same. I've been like reading more about the Toho films and a lot about the history of it. I even rewatched King of Monsters a couple of days ago. And honestly, I enjoyed it more than I ever have. The human element didn't even bother me that much, which is rare. But yeah, I actually enjoyed it. So shout out Godzilla Minus One. That is definitely in my top list. So I'm not gonna go into too specifics coming. We got some city awards coming up. But my favorite movie of the year actually was a non-fandom movie. So Godzilla Minus One is up there, but my favorite movie is going to Oppenheimer. That's my number one movie for the year. I really, really loved it. It landed for me. Another solid entry by Christopher Nolan. And it was just a great movie experience. But another movie I want to throw out there actually is The Covenant, which was a big surprise. I didn't really hear of it until right before it dropped. It's a Guy Ritchie film. Jake Gyllenhaal. He's out in the Iraq War initially. He goes out there and, it's kind of based on a true story where they had a lot of translators, like 20,000 people were brought into the U.S. military to be translators. And so it's a rescue mission movie, but it's really, really good. It hits some emotional keys on it too. So it was really surprising. But one thing left off is Killers of the Flower Moon. I feel like that might pass that up and be at the top of my list, but I didn't get around to seeing it this year actually. So it did not make my list.
Nice. I'm not going to lie, Killers of the Flower Moon is something I'm unlikely to watch. It just doesn't fall into my brain of where the kind of thing I would normally watch, to be fair.
Fair enough.
I have very simple tastes when it comes to films as an absolute stupid nerd geek. I struggle with like timepieces and like old school films and things like that. So it just doesn't, and like if there's no laser swords or like space battles, I'm like, what's the point?
I like it.
I struggle a little bit with those, but to throw another one out there from my list, to be fair, trying to stay away from like the fandom stuff, to be fair, because I'm going to honourable mention to Guardians of the Galaxy 3. It doesn't quite make my top 2 or 3, but I think is a wrap up to their particular trilogy, and as one of the Marvel films this year, it was the best one that we got by quite some distance. So, but probably the one that appears near the top of my list is Super Mario Bros. Really fun film. I think, given the awful films that came out in the 90s, those of us that grew up with Super Mario Bros. On the Game Boy and stuff like that, we really needed something like this. And I'm not going to say it was like, it's as a drama or anything like that. It's like the top film of all time or anything like that. But it was a fun film. It was something good to see. Jack Black as Bowser was absolutely outstanding. That Peaches song obviously had everyone for months in terms of it. Let's hope that does win an Oscar, to be fair, because that would be incredible.
It might. It might.
Yeah, it's an original piece. Who knows?
Yeah, dude, it was good. It was catchy. It caught on to my. I was singing it in my head for a couple of days after I first heard it on social media. I haven't seen the movie, and I actually tried to watch it last night. My niece came over for a little sleepover last night, 5-year-old niece, and I wanted to watch that with her because I haven't seen it yet. I'm like, perfect. I've been wanting to see it anyways, and it just hasn't made it to it. Me and my wife have almost watched it multiple times because I'm not above watching those types of movies alone without, but it was just like, perfect. I'll watch it with my niece. Haven't seen it yet. And she, proud moment, said, I want to watch Return of the Jedi. So couldn't tell her no to that. So I do plan on seeing that soon though, but it was a proud uncle moment. I was like, yeah, we'll watch Star Wars. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I've heard it's super fun. Grew up with Mario, playing Mario 64, Mario Kart, all that stuff. So I got to get to watch that.
What appears on your worst films of the year list? I've got a few. Let me just throw my first one out there. To be fair,
go for it.
The Flash. Absolutely shocking. Flash, to be fair, was always one of my favorite, if not favorite, DC character. And the Reverse Flash was always my favorite sort of villain from DC. But given I'm quite tied into the Flashpoint storyline, it's been one of my favorite comic stories of all time. To be fair. So the way they did Flashpoint in the Flash TV series, I don't know if you ever saw it. You expected it to last like a good 3 or 4 or 5 episodes, maybe have repercussions and stuff like that. It lasted like 1 episode. So when they said they're doing a film on it, I was like, cool, maybe they're actually going to finally do this justice. And I was so disappointed with this film. It was absolutely shocker. Yeah. So I can't really say much more because it was a fucking pile of shite. So, what about you? What have you got on your list?
Yeah, Flash is down there, mainly because of just the disappointment factor, because of how high of expectations I had, like you said. Honestly, another one that's down there is Blue Beetle. It didn't land for me at all. I was very disappointed by it. I didn't think it was horrible. I just didn't think it was special. Like I was kind of hoping it to be. So it's lower. It's not my worst of the year by any means, but it's in the disappointment pile for me. I'd say worst of the year, probably going to go with the most recent one I just watched, Rebel Moon.
Yeah, that's on my list. Yeah,
and I saw a lot of ratings saying 3 out of 10, 3.5 out of 10, 0 out of 10. I would probably give it like a 6. So I don't think it's the worst movie I've ever seen. But man, what a disappointment. I mean, and I heard enough before I watched it about how terrible it was, so I didn't have a lot of expectations. And I didn't think it was going to be that good from the trailers anyways. I didn't really know what the plot was. I just knew it was a Zack Snyder failed Star Wars film. So I'm like, okay, rated R, Star Wars film. Turns out PG-13 wasn't even a rated R Star Wars film. And it was just pretty generic in every possible way. So I will probably throw Rebel Moon as worst movie for me.
Yeah. Could not agree more. The trailers gave no indication of what the plot was. Even after you've watched the film, I'm like, what really was the plot of this?
Rebellion.
And they talk about the fact that although there is like an MA rated or like a director's cut that they're going to release that's going to be much different. I'm like, what's the point in doing a PG rated that is completely different to a director's cut that's more mature or graphic or anything like that? So, like, I will watch obviously part 2 because I'm one of those people that once I've started something, I have to complete it.
Right.
So I will watch part 2, but I was a lot more brutal. I think when I rated this one online, I gave it a 3.5 out of 10.
I think I was going to say, I think one of yours was a 3.
So it was,
I get it though.
To me, absolutely shocking.
When I saw it, before I even saw the movie, a day after it released, I saw a post and it was a Zack Snyder quote saying, I really want fans to see the director's cut. It's a totally different movie. And it's like, okay, bro. What? Okay. The Snyderverse, the Zack Snyder's Justice League thing, I get it. Things happened. I get it. But if you're going to say this every time your movie comes out instantly, like, well, you should see the other part of it. It's like, well, maybe you should make a movie that we can see it the first time around. Like, if you can't fit it into the window of what's going to come out into the theatrical release, and this happens every time you make a movie, maybe you need to change some methods of your own, because I saw that post and immediately just rolled my eyes. Like, come on, man. It just came out.
This is like every like DC film director's excuse now, because they were doing it with the
Mhm.
Air cut for the
Mhm.
Suicide Squad, and it's like, this is how the DCEU died, not on a pile of good films, but in a pile of director's cuts in the editing
Director's
room.
cuts. God. Yeah, after a while.
Yeah, to throw a couple more out there on my worst list. To be fair,
Mm.
the Netflix film Leave the World Behind.
Mm.
I don't know if you've seen this.
I have.
I saw through Facebook that this was supposed to be a really good film, so I said to my wife, I was like, "Let's sit down and watch this." And then 2.5 hours later, I was sat there confused about this whole film. I was like, I understand the theory of the plot, but it was so
Right.
fucking boring. It was like you're just sitting there through tedium at the end just to get through it, and goes, is there anything actually exciting going to happen, or is there going to be any real explanation to what's really going on? And then it's just like, not really.
No.
So it was just boring for the great cast that it had of like the 3 or 4 well-known actors in there. Like Kevin Bacon showing up for a useless 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Is the crazy neighbor. Apart from
Doomsday
that,
Prepper.
I saw no point to this film really.
Yeah, and it kind of, when you get to the end and they don't really explain anything, won't spoil it all or anything, but they don't really, obviously, it kind of just felt like, okay, were you just trying to scare people with that? Because you didn't even have really like a coherent plot. It was just kind of like ominous warning. And what was up with the deer? I mean, again, I won't get fully into it, but like, that's
that was a thread that went nowhere.
Yeah, thousands of deer. Like what caused that out of everything? That was just a mystery thing they just threw into the plot to be like, well, let's get people thinking here too. Like that, I don't know. So it was pretty lazy. I thought it was pretty lazily written. And it sucks. Like you said, it was a great cast, and I thought the cast did pretty well, but overall, it was just kind of lazy.
To throw probably my last one out there, Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh.
Based on obviously the game that came out. I've never played the games or anything like that, so I didn't really have much to it, but my other half was eager to go and see it. So we went down and sat down and watched it, and it was shockingly bad. Even she admitted it. Every review I've seen afterwards is like, this was not great. So as supposed to be what was supposed to be like a horror suspense film, it was kind of pointless, to be fair. There are a couple of good actors in it, like I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the guy that played
Josh Hutcherson,
I think him, and then the guy that played Shaggy in the Scooby-Doo, or the old school Scooby-Doo films.
Matthew.
Matthew. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but
Gifford starts with a G. Yeah,
he was in it, and he was funny in it. To be fair, but it was just rubbish film. To be fair, and my last honourable mention of worst films goes to people are going to hate me for this, Barbie. Simply because my wife was again very keen to see this film. I was like, cool, no, let's go. Maybe it could be a bit of fun. It had obviously a stellar cast, to be fair, lots of cameos. I think it was just a bad evening around for me because I finished work. We went straight out to there. I was like, let me get some food at the cinema. Then the app for ordering food at the cinema wasn't working. By the time we got there, the queue was too big, so I couldn't get any food. So I went into this film a bit hangry. And then sat down and watched this. And I was like, it's just not my type of film. Like, I thought it was. There are different points where it is amusing, and the cast was great. But in terms of just like, again, my personal taste, being a sci-fi space adventure fan, it just wasn't quite my cup of tea. And so I think the combination of not being had to have any dinner, having been at work all day, going straight to the movies, and then having to sit through some of that was just not a good combination for me. I think the chance of me sitting down and watching it again with my wife are very slim to none. But she's got this fucking multicolored Oodie that says "I am Knuff" on it now. So it's never leaving the flat ever. So
I've seen the phrase going around. I haven't seen the movie yet. Obviously, I've heard the hype because it was one of the most talked about. But yeah, it seems I either hear it was an inspirational, motivational work of art. It was so beautiful, or I hear it was whatever. It was kind of goofy. So it's one or the other. I have a feeling I'd be on the side of things. I love Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie and all the cast in it, but I might watch it. I'm not like against it, but I just don't have much of an interest to watch it.
Yeah. Any TV shows that go on your worst list of 2023?
Yeah, we had a couple good a couple good TV series this year, a couple bad. I put a list together for our city episode of all the series and movies in fandom, and after I finished the list, I was like, man, that was a pretty weak year. But worst, really, I mean, two bad shows. Secret Invasion needed some help, even though I didn't dislike it as much as everybody else did, actually. But Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, that's one of my worst. It's been a massive disappointment. Yep. I haven't even watched this week's episode. I don't know how many episodes there even are. I'm just like, I'll finish it because I'm like you. If I start it, I gotta finish it, but I'm not enjoying it.
Yeah, 10 episodes for this series, so there's one more to go from where we currently stand. I haven't watched this week's yet, but yeah, just this backstory-driven plot in a way, of just taking the characters in like 2015-16, like a year or two after the original Godzilla film, and just basically spending most episodes giving us the backstory and how they got to where they are now. And I think we said it before, don't give a fuck about any of these people. They're not exciting. They don't draw me in. I'm more excited to watch the flashbacks to the 50s with like their grandparents and the younger version of the main of one of the characters as well, played by Wyatt Russell. And obviously, we said before, I like the fact that the same characters played by real life father and son. So you got Kurt Russell playing the older one, and then Wyatt Russell playing the younger version. That's good. But apart from that, I know it's not supposed to be a film about the monsters, so to speak, but give us some more monsters a little bit when you're like, Monarch's supposed to be chasing them down and stuff. And you've got one that we've never heard of. And we've had like 3 glimpses of Godzilla.
Right. Like it doesn't take a budget to talk about them instead of following these flashbacks. It doesn't take a budget to be like, in 1974, this one emerged from blah, 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 blah. And this one, hey, there's this type out here. Hey, they actually came from... there's no budgetary issue with explaining the monsters, but we don't even talk about them, let alone see them. Like, we just go over the backstory of one accident and then a scientist who had 2 families. Haven't got any explanations of monsters.
I thought it might be like them setting up about how they set up their stations all over the world when they found the different titans in like hibernation and stasis and stuff.
Exactly.
Just getting none of that. So
talk about the different outposts.
As much as we've become Godzilla fans recently, this show is not been a good one for us to take that further on with. So, on my list, I've got I don't know if you watched it at all on Apple TV. It's a series called Foundation.
No,
series 2 came out in the last year. It's based on the old Isaac Asimov novels. Foundation was one of just talked about as one of the great sci-fi novels of all time in the series that he did after that. It's quite hard to explain, really, but based on this show being based off the books, I always thought this was going to be a hard series to nail because of how complicated kind of the story is, and that each book jumps ahead several hundreds of years each time, so it's never the same characters in each book. Whereas with this TV series, they've tried a way to keep the characters from the start of the series in it and jumped ahead hundreds of years and keeping them somehow in it by being in stasis or being brought somehow back to life. And it's veered quite dramatically away from the books. And this is actually, I'm quite rare in the fact that I wouldn't normally have read the books and then seen a film or TV series to be able to then talk about the differences between the two. This is a rare one for me where I actually have. And it's catastrophic the differences between the books and now this TV series. They've gone so far off it doesn't even seem recognizable to me as the book. So to me that appears on there. So yeah, big I'm not excited. They're going on for a season 3, which they need to because they set up the story for season 3 and season 2. But so apart from that, though, it's just again one of those ones that I will continue watching because I need to see how they're going to end it. But I'm not excited to watch it anymore.
You're stuck.
What about good shows? What have you got in for a good show?
So I would, at the top of my list for good shows, I got a few from fandom, actually. I don't know if I watched any TV shows that came out this year that were outside of fandom, actually, the more I think about it. But for me, Ahsoka is up there. I really liked Ahsoka. It worked for me. Last of Us was pretty solid, and Loki season 2, obviously. Loki season 2 is loved it. I still don't know if I like it more than the first season or not. It's kind of hard. The first season's great. But yeah, those were just a few solid seasons. We needed Loki. The MCU needed Loki. everybody needed some type of success to come out of the MCU, and it had a pretty cool little exit there. And Ahsoka was polarizing, but I think it worked for me. So I think for it, my Star Wars heart needed it at least. I needed a Star Wars show to land. Mando season 3 was a little iffy, so Ahsoka for me it worked. Yeah. So as far as TV series go, it wasn't that bad. There weren't a ton, but the good outweighed the bad for me.
Yeah, I've got Ahsoka and Loki on my list as well. I did actually put season 3 of The Mandalorian down as an honourable mention because I actually really enjoyed the season as a whole. Okay. I think the Star Wars fan of me loves almost everything they put out Star Wars wise. You know when you're looking through your Facebook memories when they pop up, and obviously over the last month or so, there's been quite a few popping up because of the sequel trilogies that always came out in December. So I've been able to re-look at some of my comments after first walking out of the film to seeing some of the sequels, and my God, how far off was I on some of those? Some of those ratings and quotes that I said. Like I think I gave Rise of Skywalker a 7 out of 10 when I first walked out of the cinema. Because I was like, it's the end of a trilogy. It's giving you the nostalgia you need as a Star Wars fan. It's playing to the fanboy in you without having to go over the top about it. And then you watch it back and go, my God, I was so far off on
Isn't that weird? I swear to God, same thing, Andy. I came out of the theater after watching Rise of Skywalker, and I texted my older brother, who got me into Star Wars in the first place, who is a big, Star Wars fan. Read Heir to the Empire when it came out, like had the paperback, big Star Wars fan. I texted him after I came out of that. I was like, they did it. They put together a solid movie. I told everybody, I was like, it was pretty good. I took my wife and her dad and sister back to it and saw it a second time in theaters. And the whole movie, I was like, wait, this isn't very good. What's going on? And every time I watch it back, it gets worse. And I'm right there with you. I probably would have put an 8 on it. And now it's like a 5.5. I don't know how they got me, but they tricked me the first time watching. I don't know.
Yeah. I was like, oh, there's enough fan service in this for what you need is like for a final ending to the Skywalker saga and all this sort of stuff. And I was just like, originally I still don't have as much of a problem with the somehow Palpatine returned line because I'm like, how are the rebels going to know how he returned? It's a decent enough line for them to say because it's not like they're going to put a galaxy wide explanation out. He's like, I fell down the shaft. I use some Sith magic to transfer myself into a new body that I've been cloning on a secret planet for the last 30 years. So I was like, I think that's a fair enough line. I didn't have much of an issue with it. But...
That's fair. It's closed capture or closed circuit footage showed the Emperor falling down, and
it's like it recovered CCTV footage from the Death Star 2. We see Palpatine leaving his own body. Yeah, it was just funny, just going back and going. I gave stuff far too much of a good prediction good review at first. But,
yeah, that's hilarious though. I'm glad somebody else did too because I always feel silly.
But yeah, I had Loki, Ahsoka, honorable mention of Mandalorian. Any other one that I put on the sort of my favourites of the year was outside of fandom was a Korean zombie show called Happiness. I've been trying to get more into some zombie stuff recently, watching films and TV series. I don't know why it's been on my mind, but I was like, I want to watch a bit more zombie stuff. Randomly found this show, and what I loved was watching it in its normal Korean language with just English subtitles because it gives it a bit more authenticity. But basically, it was like about these two cops that had decided to get married even though they weren't in love, so they could get an apartment. It's like civil servants or something, how they work in Korea. They get given an apartment if they're married, and then 10 years down the line they get an option to buy it really cheap, but then they move in together and all of a sudden there's like a zombie outbreak from some drugs that were developed, and all the apartments in like the complex that they're at gets completely locked down and they're stuck in there, and it's how they deal with it all and all the other residents. And there's some people that are really good characters who get killed or didn't deserve to die, and then you've got some characters that you long for them to be fucking murdered or to be chomped down on by a zombie, and it doesn't happen for them. They get so it's kind of like, it was a really intriguing series. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. It's only like I think like 12 episodes long. It was just a one-off series. The cliche happy ending for everyone, for most of the people at the end, to be fair. But the way that the series went the whole way through, I actually really enjoyed it. So if you haven't seen it and you love your zombie stuff, It's on Netflix. It's called Happiness.
Okay.
Really, really worth a watch. So
Okay. I've
but-
heard of it, but just briefly. So yeah.
yeah. Anything else, or is that everything you've got on your list?
I think that's all I got for that little wrap up.
Same for me. Yeah, not a bad year. I think we need, like I said, I'm slightly in trepidation for what we're going to get this year because of the strikes and everything last year. We're definitely getting a lot less stuff, but hopefully the quality will still be good. Hopefully 2025 will be a bumper year since everything's been delayed till then.
Right. It should be insane. We should have the Batman 2 Man of Steel. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Superman Legacy, not Man of Steel.
Legacy,
a little Freudian slip there. Yeah, no, we got a ton of stuff coming in 2025.
I'll be looking forward to that.
Welcome to the Galactic Core Podcast. Here to review the latest films and TV shows from all your favorite intergalactic universes. Now, it's time to get your geek on. Please welcome your host, the prophesized chosen one. It's Andy.
Hello and welcome in to a very special episode, the second occurrence of the Galactic Core Podcast / Why So Sidious podcast crossover episode. The last time this happened, we covered the incredible Godzilla -1 film that shook the world from Japan all the way to America, to London, to the UK, to Australia, all over the freaking place. It took over, and it's still going hard in theaters. So this time, we're going to be covering What If Season 2. Will it hold up to our first crossover episode? You'll have to tune in and see. I'm your host, David, and here with me is my co-host, Andy of the Galactic Core Podcast. How are we doing today, Andy?
I am all good, my friend. I'm all good. It's a pleasure, as always, to be back with yourself and the Why So Sidious podcast. And just for the record, that last crossover episode we did about Godzilla -1, my most viewed video of all time on YouTube, by a long, long way. It's got double the views of anything else. So people want to look about Godzilla and they want to tune into us chatting, mate. So that's why we're back for a round 2.
We love to hear it. We love to hear it. And we got to give the people what they want. I mean, if the numbers are up, then, we got to keep pushing. That's how it works here in this business. I love it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's crack into this, Andy. Let's get into this What If Season 2. I want to start off real quick. We'll jump right into it. I want to ask, were you overall pleased or let down by this season of What If? What were your overall takeaway from it?
It was a mixed bag for me.
Okay.
As you know, I was a huge fan of season 1. I like these kind of like little alternative shows, and whilst this isn't like they do with some other bits where it's like an alternative show and to the main timeline where you can just write it off as random things, this is obviously part of the multiverse of the MCU. So these are stories that are actually really happening, parallel to the MCU itself. So it's all still sort of tied in a way. I was a huge fan of season 1, so I came into season 2 with a lot of expectation. When they released the episodes list, I was like, okay, there's some interesting ones in there.
Yeah.
A couple that I was like, I don't really know if that's going to be great or not. So some continuations of season 1 as well. So I went into this still with high hopes. The trailer looked insane, to be fair, once it came out. I went, this looks like it's going to be really good. The finishing off the trailer as well with the look at Loki's Yggdrasil tree of the multiverse.
Yeah.
And they put some Christmas lights on it just to make it a bit more fancy. I love the concept of what they did as well with this, where they released an episode every day for 9 days over Christmas and New Year. I really enjoyed the fact that they did that rather than sort of doing it week by week or dropping it all at once. I thought this was a really clever way to do it. And it just keeps me hooked every day. Then I'm like, oh, cool, let's sit down. We've had dinner. Let's watch let's watch today's What If episode. So overall, I don't think the season was as good as season 1, mainly because season 1 had an overall arc that came together to have a story at the end of it with putting everyone together from that. This one, yep, there are a couple of bits where it does obviously all come together at the end, but for the most part, it was still kind of separate from each other as well. So not as cohesive as season 1. I thought some of the stories of season 1 were better as well. So overall, season 1 better than season 2, but this is still a good season, I think, overall.
Okay. Well, that answers the second question. I was going to ask if it exceeded season 1. So there you go. There you have it. And it sounds like you're kind of right where I am with it. It doesn't exceed season 1 for me. I will say it's interesting, though. We have the same take, but for different reasons. I actually kind of felt like you're right about season 1. I liked how they told a bunch of different stories, but then at the end, they combined all of those stories into, a 2 or 3 part. I forgot how they ended season 1. But they, at least for the first 80% of the season, though, it was all separate, and then they brought it in together in a really nice way to wrap it up. But it still felt like it was kind of what if, the whole point of what if is to ask, what if? Yeah. What if this? What if, like, crazy, creative, unique circumstances that you could ask that? And so this season, it was kind of all over the place, but I think 4 of the episodes had Captain Carter in it. And a lot of it felt like it was kind of the same Captain Carter that we just got in the last 2 episodes of season 1. So to me, it almost felt like the Tales of Captain Carter, or like Captain Carter in the Multiverse of Madness, more so than it did What If season 2. So, and I know that kind of makes it sound like I don't like Captain Carter, because I actually do, whether it's live action or animated. I think it's a pretty cool character. I love Haley Atwell. She kills it. But it just kind of felt like the Captain Carter show rather than a season of What If and going crazy with whatever the case may be. So I felt like they just stuck too much to her for this season instead of being more creative with their storylines. So that was my take from it. But I'm with you too. It wasn't a bad season. I still enjoyed the majority of the episodes. I still really liked at least 4 of them. So it was still a good season of TV, and I loved the way they rolled it out too. I loved once a day. It was perfect. My brother-in-law, we had people visiting from across the country for that week, and so every day we turned on a new episode at some point while they're visiting and watched it. So I like that strategy, but I do hope season 3 kind of branches out a little bit more away from Captain Carter. But yeah.
No, I do completely agree with you there. I mean, it is the same Captain Carter from season 1. And obviously just throwing multiple stories in there for her and continuing her story as well a little bit, wasn't it, with one of the episodes? So, yeah, it was a bit too much focused on her. I don't know why they decided to do that. But yeah, I know what you mean. I enjoy the character. I just don't think I needed so much of her in this season, and for her to be the focal point of it, really. Especially when there were so many different stories you can tell. When it comes to a series like this, you don't have to stick to the same characters. You can completely branch out and tell some of the wildest stories ever. We do get that in some of them, in the fact that the cameo appearances you get in certain episodes are people you didn't really expect to see together. So that's definitely a good thing. And with season 3, like you said, I do hope they branch out to be a bit different. Whether they then tie it into everything that's going on on our main MCU timeline, in terms of worlds start disappearing, the multiverse starts crashing or whatever, going towards Secret Wars, and Avengers 5. I hope they do kind of tie it away. And it's kind of random though that at the end of it we did get they did release like a teaser, didn't they, for one of the episodes for season 3?
Yes.
So they're already in development and got it almost locked in, it seems, which is nice, because we didn't know if we would get a season 3 at that point. But it was a bit random to see that we got this clip of like Red Guardian and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, like, was that on accident? Did they mean to release that scene? Or because it wasn't a trailer for season 3? I don't know if that was an episode that was supposed to happen in season 2 and they scrapped it for the next season and just gave us a teaser. But yeah, we got Bucky and Red Guardian in the 80s going down the highway as, Lawrence Fishburne's Bill Foster's chasing them down. So that was intriguing. I don't know what the What If title is going to be, but stuff like that intrigues me. And that's creative enough. I want to see Bucky with Alexei or whatever his name was, the Red Guardian. So, but very random that came out immediately as soon as season 2 ended. But
yeah, like I think you probably hit there. Maybe it was an episode they started doing for season 2 and decided that they weren't going to do that, and so they just thought, we'll throw it into season 3 and then we can use it as like a teaser going forward. So
right. Did you hear about the other scrapped episode that involved Spider-Man?
No, I didn't.
So apparently for season 2, there was supposed to be a Spider-Man episode. And apparently, all the quotes are like the first draft was really dark, and some people were calling it Children of Men with Spider-Man, which, if you don't know, Children of Men is an apocalyptic movie where they can't reproduce anymore, I believe, and there's one woman who is pregnant. And so she's being escorted across the country, trying to get through bandits and all this stuff, basically trying to save the human race. And it's pretty, there's a lot of depressing parts in it. But yeah, apparently there was going to be a very dark dystopian Spider-Man episode, and they canned it because they deemed it would be too dark. But they made it, I believe. So yeah, you have to wonder what the hell that was about. But I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, I guess not. That's a shame.
Release the Spider-Man cut. So let's talk about some positivities. Let's get into our favorite episodes of this season. Andy, what were, if you had to give it top 3 or however many, what were your favorite ones from this season?
I think the one that goes straight to the top of my list is the Avengers 1602.
Okay.
Episode. So what happened if the Avengers were formed in 1602? I loved seeing all the Avengers together as like old school figures. It was it sort of cracked me up quite a bit. Loki is almost like the Shakespeare of his time. I thought was hilarious. He's there with his little skull. Alas, poor Yorick.
Right.
And getting like Steve Rogers, Ant-Man, and Winter Soldier as like Robin Hood and his gang, I thought was absolutely hilarious as well. I do feel like they make Ant-Man a bit too jokey in this series. Though they did it in season 1 when it was just a head, and they did it in this season where he's just constantly like cracking jokes left, right, and centre. He's like never takes anything seriously. But I thought it was cool to see them as the Robin Hood. And obviously the story about an incursion happening. Okay, well, yeah, the episode may have been a bit more Captain Carter centric than I wanted. It was good to see the rest of them all there. And then with Hela having been sucked up into the incursion, Thor taking over as a vengeful god in a way, a vengeful ruler, I thought was quite cool. And I liked the eventual explanation at the end of how this all sort of started to happen. The fact that, Captain America was fighting Thanos in Infinity War, and he hits the time stone, and it just projected him back in time.
That's right.
I liked all that. So to me, this was overall probably a really fun episode because, and it'll follow on to the next episode that I would mention. But obviously, Happy Hogan being like his version of the Hulk. And the fact that they carried that into this episode, and the fact that he's trying not to get angry because he's like head of security, and he then just
head of security
just loses it. Yeah. So that definitely goes into my top 3. To be fair,
okay. I like that one too. That was solid. Yeah.
Following on from that, I do have the Happy Hogan Saves Christmas episode. Okay. I think in the first half of this series, this was probably the one I enjoyed the most because it was a fun episode. It was great to see Justin Hammer back. Yes. I know that he's obviously rumoured to be in the Armor Wars film or series, whatever they're going to be doing with that now.
Yeah,
coming back into that. Yeah, who knows? Is it film, TV series? Who knows anymore? But yeah, it was great to see him back in that. I always enjoyed his character from Iron Man 2. And obviously just Hogan trying to go around and be creeping around the Avengers Tower to save things, and then accidentally getting injected with Hulk blood and turning into this like rage monster with his like crooked face, and just going about it the way that they did, and him getting to fight the Hulkbuster armor as well. I just thought it was overall a funny episode, and one that actually put a smile on my face, and I really enjoyed.
Nice.
Because I believe that was the Christmas Eve episode.
Yes.
Based in mind that it was the only actual Christmas episode for this series. This would have been better to have dropped on Christmas Day. Right. But it was still cool to have a Christmas episode in there. But then rounding off my top 3, I've got Kahori Reshaped the World.
Nice.
So a brand new character they developed just for this series. So obviously she's not in the comics or been in the MCU or anything like that before. It was a really interesting episode, I thought. Based on obviously the Spanish invading, and obviously they had this lake that was forbidden for them to go into, because we learned that obviously was at the start that Odin was using the Tesseract to defend against Surtar, and Surtar strikes down on it, splits the Tesseract and sends it spinning out into the world, and it obviously lands on this particular Earth. then people that went into the lake, it just sucks them in and transports them to this sky world, which is like a different dimension or something, and it gives them all superpowers. I was a bit sketchy on how the Tesseract gave them all the powers that they had, in terms of they all got given super speed and the ability to like, can't even think of the word really, but telekinesis and stuff like that, the ability to control the portals. And I can understand the portals thing because it's the Tesseract, but making them like immortal and giving them super speed, I was a little bit sketchy on how it gave them all those powers. But the fact that she's like not willing to be like the rest of those people that got sucked up there and to just sit and be immortal for the rest of their days living in there, and she wants to go back and defend her people, was great. And they all turn up at the end, and there's that great scene where like she's about to get killed or something. They turn around and the Spanish guy's looking in the forest, and all their eyes just start glowing, and they're like, "Yeah, we've all come to fucking kick your ass."
Yeah.
So I actually, I really enjoyed this character. I thought, as a brand new character they've invented just for this, not taking any comic book sources at all, they did a good job. And obviously, she plays a big part in the finale. So
yeah. Dude, I love that. That's actually, I think that's my favorite episode of the season. So I love that you had that up there. So I'll just go into that, man. I felt more in this episode than any other episode. I'm a big emotions guy when I'm watching stuff. I probably cry a little bit too much than I should. I feel a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff. I feel the hairs lift on my body. I'm ready to run into a battle, and I anything that makes me feel like strong emotions that resonates with me at all is always going to go to the top of my list. And this one really did that. It was a beautiful story. And like you said, it's a brand new character, and it's so refreshing for them to not just change existing characters to how they want to do or whatever the case. It's just refreshing for them to be like, let's make a new person and represent the Native Americans who we don't have Native American. Well, we do actually. There's a couple X-Men, I believe, who are Native American. But it's not a lot. And, they just did a great job at creating this new character. And the Native American stories always tend to grab me too. My grandpa grew up on a reservation in South Dakota. He lived with us for a while. I mean, so he had just paintings galore, and all these stories would tell. And so Native American stories always just kind of, I love them. Prey was an amazing movie. And this kind of reminded me of Prey. The Kahori kind of reminded me of the main character from Prey. And just outside of all that, it was just a cool character. They did a really good job at creating a new, unique character. I'm with you though. Yeah, the Tesseract. I know the Tesseract gave Captain Marvel her powers, so it can give you flight and optic blasts or hand blasts or whatever the hell Captain Marvel does. But yeah, I don't know how they just hit the jackpot on everything. The Superman powers everybody got by going through the lake. So there was definitely a few things here and there, but overall, the ending where she rises up and she can't take it because she knows her people are hurting. And I don't know if you noticed, but I did want to talk about this. Her stance is very similar to Killmonger. Very similar. She sees her people who are flourishing with this new extraterrestrial power that is giving them this great abundance in life, and they're not using it to help those who are struggling. But she handled it differently. She didn't just start burning the Skyland and killing their leaders and saying, we're going to kill all these people. She gave them a chance. She said, you guys can stay here. I'm going to go save my people. And they came and they helped her. So you have to wonder, like, what if Killmonger actually came to T'Challa not with war in mind, and actually tried to explain everything to him, and T'Challa might have listened, and what would have happened if Wakanda listened to Killmonger, So I thought it was a very interesting parallel there. But that was my favorite episode too. So I was a big fan of that. I loved Avengers 1602, just for everything you said. I won't even go over all of it because you pretty much hit every part that I really enjoyed too. But I love just the little aspects, like the Wakanda gave Thor the vibranium sword as like a coronation gift. And it's another example of Wakanda gifting vibranium to different countries over the years. Like another episode, they revealed that they were the ones who gifted the vibranium to make Cap's shield. So it was a cool episode. I loved Steve Rogers' place in it. The Christmas one, I liked it just for the Christmas feel, honestly. I wasn't crazy about it, but I just liked the Christmas light feel to it. And I totally agree. It should have just released on Christmas. It would have been perfect. But I think with the rest of my top episodes, the other one is going to be episode 2. What if Peter Quill attacked Earth's mightiest heroes? So we get the Avengers in the 80s, and I just love the montage of the team up of the 80s and Avengers being introduced, everybody coming into play. You know, the T'Challa's dad. I'm already forgetting everybody else who was involved in it.
Obviously, you had original
Hank
Ant-Man.
Pym. Yeah.
Hank Pym. I forget her name, but the woman from Captain Marvel.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, what was her name? Was it Marvel?
Marvel, yeah.
Okay.
I've got the list in front of me. I don't know why I'm saying I don't know. I've got the blue list in front of me. Dr. Wendy Lawson.
Yes, there you go.
Obviously, Bill Foster was in there. Obviously, an older Peggy Carter, non-super soldier Peggy Carter.
Soldier.
And obviously, Winter Soldier was in there as well. Sent by Russia.
Yeah, you got thrown in there. And, yeah, no, I thought that was a very fun movie episode. It hooked me. The first episode was kind of meh to me, and then the second episode dropped the second day, and I was like, okay, here we go. We're rolling into something here. So those were my top episodes for sure.
Yeah, Peter Quill attacked Earth Mightiest Heroes was. I thought it was a good. I love the 80s lineup of like 80s Avengers, so to speak. I thought that was really good. The only thing that disappoints me about this episode is, like they do so often, and what's been true to this series a little bit actually is the fact that they don't. The title doesn't match up with what happens in the episode a little bit. So it's what happened if Peter Quill attacked Earth Mightiest Heroes. They don't really want to take him out because apart from Bucky, obviously wants to kill a kid.
Yeah.
They don't really go for him because he is a kid, so to speak, even though he's got these powers that can destroy all of them. And they end up turning him. And also Bucky, who's supposed to be, maybe he's obviously different because it's a different universe, he's supposed to be brainwashed and very compliant at this stage, and they just managed to turn him by Peggy or what's his face? Older Stark. Howard Stark.
Yeah.
Just having a word in his ear, and it's just like, I don't think that's quite going to break through his brain controlling. So I never like it when they get the enemy to turn in the episode at the end and then attack his dad. So it was like, what if Ego sent Peter to Earth, he wusses out, and then Ego comes to finish the job and gets beaten himself.
Yeah. Should have been what if Ego attacked Earth. Let's just go with that. Yeah, or something. But yeah, that's a good point. Well, speaking of issues you had with it, what was your most disappointing episodes? The episodes that you had high hopes for based off the title or based off the synopsis, and you watched it and were like, well, what the hell was that?
A couple in there for different reasons, some more disappointing than others. The most disappointing episode for me was actually what if Hela found the 10 rings. I remember messaging you about this because I was a little bit frustrated. Again, that maybe a slightly not necessarily misleading title, because I thought what if Hela got the 10 rings was like the episode title. So the way they've worded it, Hela found the 10 rings, slightly different. So this was essentially like a replacement. This was like the original Thor film and Shang-Chi put into one. It was like a new story, wasn't it? So, her defying Odin, getting banished to Earth, and Odin putting a curse on her headset, and then sending it to there. And we got all the Thor moments of where she thinks she's still got her powers, turns out she hasn't, and she's like, watch this, when she walks up to her headset and tries to pick it up off the ground and can't do it. So all the classic Thor 1 moments, but obviously with Hela instead. I just overall, disappointed. I thought this was going to be a ruthless episode of what if badass Hela got the 10 rings and used them on top of her powers to just decimate everyone on Earth. She probably could have taken over Earth with her normal powers anyway, to be fair. But then with the 10 rings on top, I was expecting it to be an episode where she decimates Earth, takes it over, and then takes over the 9 realms and destroys Odin. That's what I was kind of expecting, is like retribution.
Sick.
And the fact that we got like an episode where she becomes redeemed and becomes Hela the White. It was just overall a bit, my most disappointing episode, because it just wasn't what I was expecting given the title. Yeah. And then I was not expecting like a redemption story for her.
Yeah, it was. I know you messaged me before I watched it, and I know you're pretty disappointed by it. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it either. I agree with you. It was kind of they just hit all the same notes as Thor 1, but with Hela. But they made sure to literally hit every aspect of it. And I kind of expected that too. I did think it was going to be Hela and Odin just conquering. Like we were going to get to see those days they talked about in Ragnarok. And we really didn't. All we really got was Odin, just another example of him being just a dog shit father. He sends his daughter to Earth to learn mercy, and then when she does, he comes and tries to kill her.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell, dude? I don't know. So it definitely wasn't what I was expecting either. Hela the White was, I don't know, maybe it's because we just saw Ahsoka the White, and it just was like, okay, I mean, I don't know who asked, I don't know. It was okay. It was more disappointing than I was hoping for it too. Again, didn't hate it, but didn't love it.
I think the only one that I thought was really boring for this particular series was the Iron Man crashed into the Grandmaster episode. So this was a leftover episode from season 1, where we never get to see Gamora that we see in the finale of season 1 set up. Right. So this was kind of her story mixed in with what if Tony Stark never made it back to Earth after the end of the first Avengers film and was left in space. I just thought it was boring. To be fair, there wasn't much that, having watched it, excited me about it. I don't really have much more to say about it. I literally just thought it was a fairly boring episode. There was nothing exciting about it. It's kind of weird when you're doing a retrospective episode of character that was already brought into the finale of the first season as a badass, and then just turns up out of nowhere really in this episode. And then just Iron Man kind of being Iron Man. I'd like to see Tony Stark and the Grandmaster on screen together in a proper film.
That'd be funny.
Because I think Robert Downey Jr. and Jeff Goldblum bouncing off each other would be absolutely hilarious. Yeah. But for me, in this episode, it was just kind of a bit meh. So I don't really have much more to say about this episode apart from the fact that I just found it boring.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you. There wasn't a lot to it. It was, I think after that, it was like, okay, 4 episodes in, I only really, really liked 1 so far. And after I watched episode 4, I was like, man, this season it's dragging a little bit. The only part that stood out to me was the very end. And I'm not even sure how I feel about it, which was we see an alternate ending of Gamora and Tony killing Thanos. I mean, Gamora kills him, but Gamora hits him with the pokey stick that turns people into melty goo from Thor Ragnarok over on Sakaar. But it was another instance where What If has just made Thanos getting killed look incredibly easy. It's like the 4th time he's been killed with absolutely no sweat broken or anything. It's like, you're kind of messing with my man's intimidation factor. You gotta stop killing him off with ease like this. You already did it 3 times, I think, in What If. Let's just leave Thanos alone because you're ruining Thanos, in my opinion.
It's their ongoing joke now, isn't it? In terms of like how easily can we kill Thanos in this series?
Yeah. So he's either a Ravager minion who's kind of a good guy, or he just gets killed instantly. It's like, okay. Can we give one story where Thanos is back to being scary? Like, I don't know.
Although I would have liked to have seen, I think it was in the Hela episode, wasn't it? At the very end, like her and what was it? Wenwu show up, and obviously at the point where Thanos is like getting child Gamora, he's getting ready to do his child kidnapping scene, and they turn up to stop him. So it's like I would like to have seen that battle. Like, it's just the fact that every time. Yeah, Thanos has got a full Infinity Gauntlet in this series. He just gets his ass whooped instantly.
It's just let's get our boy, doing something. Let's give him put a little bit more respect back on his name there, because I don't know. So I do want to get into the finale a little bit. I don't know if you wanted to touch on any of the other episodes before. Pretty much the only thing we haven't covered is episode 1 and episode 5. So Nebula joined the Nova Corps, and What If Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper. So I thought episode 1 was super boring. It didn't really bring me in. I honestly don't even remember a lot of it. There was a couple like, oh, that's cool, or that's that guy from like an Easter egg or a cameo, but other than that, there wasn't a lot to write home about. And episode 5 was basically the Winter Soldier, but it's Peggy instead in his place, being best friends with Natasha. And then I think, so Steve is in Bucky's place, basically. And we find out Steve's been, used as the Hydra Stomper. But anything notable to say about either of those episodes? Were they kind of just whatever to you?
Yeah, I mean, episode 1, Nebula joined the Nova Corps. The only good thing about that was the cameos. Korg and Meek, Howard the Duck. Even getting Jon Rogg from Captain Marvel film was with Jude Law voicing him was a nice surprise.
It's true.
Apart from that, like you said, it was kind of super boring. To be fair, the woman in charge of Nova Corps just turning on them and allowing Ronin to want to invade them after the years of being stuck behind a barrier. It's like, really? That's the route you went down? You kind of sold out quite quickly after closing that barrier.
A little bit. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was, like you said, it was kind of boring, to be fair. Nothing really that good about it. Captain Carter fights the Hydra Stomper, Winter Soldier / Black Widow replacement film or replacement episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting concept. I don't really buy into this version of Steve being like kept in the Hydra Stomper by the Red Room, so to speak. Yeah, again, not much. Because at the start of episode, they always put the when they're doing the intros, they always have like the credits of who's appearing in it. And when it came up with the Rachel Weisz, and I was like, I remember her being in the MCU. I just don't remember who she played. And it wasn't until she showed up on screen, I was like, oh, right, she was like Black Widow's mother. And I was like, but she sounded nothing like her character from the film. I was like, I didn't recognize her at all. So that was a bit random.
I had to check the casting when I was watching the episode because I missed the first part of it at the start. And I was like, is this Rachel Weisz? I guess it is. And it turned out to be. But yeah, it didn't really sound like her.
No, I mean, actually, apart from that. Sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, I felt that way about Goldblum, too. I didn't think it was Goldblum in that episode until I double-checked. I was like, oh, it is. Well, all right. Didn't think it was him.
Yeah, apart from that, there was nothing really of note in those episodes. I mean, I think the only good cameo that we've seen throughout this series that maybe doesn't get mentioned is that Clancy Brown returned to voice Surtar.
Hey, yeah.
And obviously he's known for many things. He was obviously in SpongeBob. We know him as Savage Opress in Star Wars, as well as obviously a couple of other cameos he's done as other characters on screen. So love his voice. Love hearing him when he turns up, and he sort of suits that Surtur voice quite well. So nice to see him just literally doing a couple of lines. He's like, "I am here to destroy." And that was like just it. That's literally they were just
Clancy's
like,
ready.
A voice note. Just do a voice note on your phone and send that over to us. It's fine. We don't really need you to come into the studio.
Always on deck. Clancy's always ready to give one or two lines for an entire project. Shout out to Clancy Brown.
People made a big deal of the fact that Elizabeth Olsen was back to voice Scarlet Witch in the Avengers 1602 episode. I don't know why people are making such a big deal out of that. But maybe nice to see her back, because obviously there's been a lot of confusion about her her main MCU character. Is she dead? Is she alive? It's like, I don't believe they killed her off at the end of Multiverse of Madness for one second. Even if that book came out that confirms that she killed at the end of it, I'm like, no, she ain't dead. There's no way they're killing off her character. So I guess nice to have her back voicing it. I know they generally don't do that in terms of like that episode. It would have been good if there was some behind the scenes footage of all of them in the room together recording that episode of like all the Avengers. Right. Obviously, I know that's not the way it works, but it would have been cool if because that obviously was an episode where you did have the most voice actors from the MCU together to do an episode. So that kind of would have been cool, but yeah. So nothing else to say about those other two episodes either. Very standard, very boring. But yeah, let's hit up the finale. Hit me.
Yeah. So we got the finale. What if Supreme Strange intervenes? So basically, quick summary of it: Strange recruits Peggy, says somebody's breaking the multiverse again, yada yada yada. We find out he's got an entire zoo full of threats to the multiverse that he's locked up, kind of just like the Collector or Miguel O'Hara in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. He's got his own little prison. And he sends Peggy to attack Kahori in a universe where Peggy and Steve both died, and Red Skull took over America and is actually on Mount Rushmore. It's very interesting. Until Kahori enlightens Peggy that, surprise, evil Doctor Strange is, wait for it, evil. So, I just kind of felt like the plot to episode 9 here as the finale was just it was a little lazy for me. Instead of another what if, we got the tale from the first season continued, which if you have a great story to tell, then I'm good for it, because I like the finale for season 1. But season 1 ended with Supreme Strange stepping up, saving the day. Yes, it didn't specifically say he's good, and obviously he's not cured of his trauma. He still misses Christine, but the whole reason for this finale was he wants to save Christine again. Like, haven't we already done that with Supreme Strange, where he wanted to save Christine and consequences happened, and like that's it, and we're just back, and that's the motivation here, is he wants to save Christine again. It's just no new info or plan came to light, like, oh well, I learned this and I think I can make it happen, or yada yada yada. It just, nope, he's just deciding to try and do it again. And to defeat him, they just gave the 2 main characters every possible power conceivable, from every legendary item or weapon. So I don't know, it just felt like Gaia from Secret Invasion, where they gave her every DNA possible and she turned into Captain Marvel, Thor, Gamora, Drax, every possible character we know. So it just kind of felt like lazy. They just gave them everything. We're like, here, you can have Mjolnir, you can have Stormbreaker, you can have Zeus's lightning bolt, you can have the power of the Tesseract. And then they just kind of wiped him out. He kind of wiped himself out again at the end, which kind of felt repetitive to where he saw it. Just all felt repetitive. And I don't know, it didn't land that much for me. It was okay. There was some cool stuff in it for sure. There was some really cool shots, but overall, for a finale of season 2, it just kind of felt like it wasn't that original of an idea. I don't know, but I know a lot of people liked it, and I don't blame you if you did. That's how it landed for me. How did it land for you? I'm curious.
Yeah, I was a bit disappointed. Strange Supreme was probably my favorite character to come out of season 1. And because the guy is badass. Like, the way he deals with Infinity Ultron in the finale episodes of season 1, unreal. I mean, the guy swallows a galaxy being exploded.
Insane.
Like, that's fucking insane in season 1.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is badass. He's like pretty much got to be one of the strongest beings out there. He can stop people with a full Infinity Gauntlet. And he's not only battling like Infinity Ultron in these episodes, he's trying to save everyone else at the same time. Like, he carried that battle 98% of the way. And everyone else was just in here, just like hitting a vibranium Ultron with their shields and their batons and whatever, and doing nothing. Right. So it was just like he carried them. So I was expecting this episode to be huge in terms of what this character was going to deliver. The way that he's left in season 1, he's just left in his sort of shut down universe, keeping an eye on Ultron and Killmonger, isn't he? And that was sort of like his duty given to him by the Watcher for the rest of his time. He's like, sorry, mate, you fucked up, your universe is gone, but you're going to sit in this void and watch these 2 characters be frozen for all of time and make sure they don't escape. So it was interesting to see him show up in this episode, in the Sanctum Infinitum. So it was like, did he build himself this sanctum during the time he's just sat there doing nothing? And then we obviously saw him right at the end of the Kahori episode, because he does show up and he's just like, I've been waiting to talk to you for a very long time.
That's right.
And so I wondered where that would go. But yeah, overall, this episode, the storyline was just kind of disappointing. When we see the tagline of, what if Strange Supreme intervened, I was expecting, and I'm sure I saw a clip in the trailer where we see him appearing through a portal and he's coming down to the Battle of Wakanda when Thanos shows up with the gauntlet. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I'm sure that's where I got excited, because I was like, he appears above Thanos in Wakanda through a portal, and I thought that's what it means by if he intervened, what he intervened at that moment in the Battle of Wakanda. And helps the heroes to win rather than the blip happening. I thought that's essentially what this episode was going to be. So maybe that's my fault. Awesome. Maybe I got twisted round, but yeah, like you said, it's just the fact he's back on this case of trying to save Christine, even though it almost been sort of proven to him in season 1 that he couldn't change this nexus point or whatever they called it, in terms of Christine had to die in this universe. Right. So to go back on that. Okay, you're keeping in line with the character and the fact that that's all he wanted to do was save Christine. But yeah, the cool cameos in this we get from, obviously, because he's capturing universe killers, and it turns out he's capturing everyone. So we do get all the heroes and baddies in there together, and we see pretty much every baddie from every universe that we've seen across both seasons of What If, either in status or in the big fight when they're released. Loved the fact that zombie Scarlet Witch showed up with all of her zombies behind her. That was pretty epic. Because I can't wait, by the way, to get the What If Zombies series that's coming.
Yeah.
That's obviously gonna be animated in the same style. I cannot wait for that, to be fair. I thought the Zombies episode from season 1 was one of my favourites. So I can't wait to see that. So yeah, getting Scarlet Witch, and because the zombie Scarlet Witch is going to be fucking terrifying. So to
she
be
already
up against
is,
that
man.
and zombies in general. Yeah.
She's scary as hell.
Yeah. I would not be sticking around in that for that one. I'd be turning and running as fast as I could.
God,
but,
no.
Yeah, then the final showdown with Kahori, Carter, and Strange. Like you said, just throwing every weapons at all of them. I was not a fan of that, because that's just like, let's just give you the kitchen sink in a way to kind of try and make it cool without it actually being cool at the same time.
Right.
There was that cool moment when obviously, season 1 Killmonger shows up. And you think, oh, cool, so we're going to have a proper showdown again, sort of thing. And he gets beaten really easily.
Like instantly.
And then Carter just takes all the Infinity Stones. And I'm like, okay, this killed Tony Stark, but how was it working for you?
How? Okay, how? I get this is What If, but we got to keep the rules of the universe intact still. How is she going to catch all 6 Infinity Stones in her hand and just punch Supreme Strange? No gauntlet, no nothing.
No.
She's not a god. Peter, who was half god, barely could hold the Power Stone alone, and he needed the Guardians to grab his hands before it tore him to shreds. But Peggy can just hold all 6 Infinity Stones and just throw a punch like it's nothing. Like, I don't know. That part was like, that goes against like everything we know about Infinity Stones, but okay. So yeah, that part too stuck out for me. Like, yeah, it's not landing with me, but yeah.
Yeah, that was So you've got to stick to some of the rules of the universes and stuff. So that's where my disbelief was really suspended for this episode, and I was like, okay. It was fascinating to see her essentially punch all the different demons and animals and stuff out of Strange, but for them to like have such control over him that they just went back into him, and then they take over. I didn't necessarily enjoy the ending to it as well, where like Strange Supreme himself manages to hold the demons in and sacrifice themselves to the Forge to be the thing that ends it. I don't think Strange Supreme would have gone that way. Personally, I don't. From what we know of the character, I don't think he would have done that. He's trying to save Christine, and this is his whole point. He doesn't then sacrifice himself to stop the Forge from exploding. So yeah. Overall, in terms of expectation for the series, this was the episode I was had the highest expectations for and fell short by the longest way. I don't put it in there as like the worst episode of the series, but in terms of my own expectation, another Captain Carter centric episode, really, when it was supposed to be more about Strange. Great cameos all over the place that you could. I watched a YouTube video spotting every single one that they could, and it was cool to see all the different ones that were in there.
Oh, I bet.
But yeah, it just ends that way. And I don't know how you feel about it. Ending on that bombshell that Strange sacrificing himself and all the power that he had at the end of it actually resurrects his universe, but he's never born into it. And so he does actually save Christine in the end, but he's never born into this universe. And so he's not alive to see the fact that she's actually living.
Yeah, I actually didn't hate that aspect of it. I thought that was at least creative. It's one of those scenarios where you don't go home feeling good, but you don't go home feeling depressed either. It's a very bittersweet thing. It's like, okay, Christine gets to live. That's the main thing he wanted, but obviously he wanted to be able to spend time with her while she was alive. So, but I didn't hate that wrap up, that conclusion where isn't that when the Watcher's kind of showing Peggy the universe that is now created now that Strange.
That was a good way to end it, to be fair, when she's like, take me home, but take the long route, so show me a few different universes.
Yes.
And he's like, you won't believe what you get to see, and then we end it on that shot of seeing Loki's Yggdrasil.
Yes. I like
that was a really cool bit to end that on, to be fair.
For sure. Yeah. No, I agree with you there. The finale as a whole, and it always sucks when that's one of your highest expectations, and it happens to be the finale, and then it kind of falls short like that. It puts a damper on the season as a whole when something like that. But no, the last scene, I thought that was a really good way to wrap it all up for sure. I was hoping we were going to see Loki, kind of. I didn't know if we would. I thought it'd be kind of cool to see an animated Loki, God of Stories, but I don't hold it against them for not doing it. We just got him live action, so it's just a little hope.
I think, when they showed Yggdrasil, I think it would have been cool if it had like the Watcher and Peggy looking at Yggdrasil, and it maybe like zoomed into Yggdrasil and just shows Loki's face, and him just gives a little nod to the Watcher, and they go on their way, sort of thing. That would have been a slightly cool way, I think, to end it. So.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been bad. Well, speaking of stuff you would have liked to see, do you have any? So we obviously have season 3 confirmed for What If. We got that random sneak peek scene. Are there any concepts you have in mind of something you'd like to see coming out in season 3?
It's a tough one because you could literally do anything, really, isn't it?
Anything, right?
They seem to be a bit tied up with tying everything a little bit together. Hopefully, a bit less Captain Carter in season 3.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think we've kind of tied up her story now, so I don't really see the need for them to keep going back to her.
True.
For a season 3. Rumor has it season 3 will be the final season as well.
Okay.
Obviously not confirmed, but I don't know how much longer they would keep on doing it, to be fair. Especially if maybe season 3 eventually ties into, like we said, Secret Wars with incursions and stuff like that. I would like to see that as the overall arcing storyline, since they like to obviously try and tie things up at the end. I'd like to see that because we already got the incursions sort of happening in the Avengers 1682 episode. So I would like that to. I don't really have any ideas or suggestions for individual episodes because there's just so much you can do. Whether it's adapting different storylines in the comics or just coming up with brand new concepts. There's just so much out there that I would have to sit down and have a real hard think before I could do anything off the top of my head. But I think there's an overall sort of arc for the series itself, tying it into Secret Wars, the destruction of universes, and the Watcher not really sure what's happening or why, and then sort of investigating it himself. Since this particular Watcher likes to intervene, it seems.
Does. Nosy.
So yeah, overall arc for the series that at the end of each episode, maybe the universe collapses somehow, and the Watcher starts to investigate, and it leads down the road towards Secret Wars.
It's a great answer, honestly. That's a great answer. If they did that and they were just dropping breadcrumbs all the way to Secret Wars from the first episode of season 3 throughout, and it culminated to the finale where it kind of opened up into where Secret Wars is going, or that would be awesome. So that's a great idea, especially because they confirmed, like you said earlier, that everything that happens in What If is happening in canon. It's just happening in different parts of the multiverse. So that's kind of a cool thing there. So. Great answer there. I don't have a lot, even though I kind of threw it out there like maybe a couple suggestions. I barely even have anything either. I said one of mine earlier, but it kind of goes against my let's be creative and branch out. It's not that creative, but the whole what if T'Challa listened to Killmonger and helped him, and the world fought back, and so Killmonger was with T'Challa and stuff, but the world wasn't accepting of their help, and you got that conflict there. Or what if Ronan succeeded in destroying Xandar and the Guardians, and then Thanos had to step up and scramble to find the other stones because Ronan would now have been more powerful than him. But honestly, those two were two that popped up from something else I had saw from these episodes, so that's not super creative. But I like yours. I'm going with yours. I think they should drop some breadcrumbs into Secret Wars next season. That would be awesome. And talk about a way to get people to watch who aren't, who are like, well, I'll skip the animated stuff. You're like, well, it leads into Secret Wars. That's going to bring more, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of extra people coming in to watch the series. So that would be awesome.
One that just popped into my head quickly, since Jonathan Majors obviously been fired from his role as Kang the Conqueror. If they had a What If episode that kind of maybe wraps up Kang's ultimate storyline, If they don't
Okay.
choose to recast him, because there's obviously been a lot of rumors about he had a clause in his contract saying he could be the only one that played Kang, which obviously we don't know how true that is. Where there've been lots of rumors going around now about recasting, but if they decide not to recast him and just change the Kang Dynasty film to Avengers 5 or whatever, and they don't continue a story, just having one episode that wraps up a whole of Kang's storyline for the MCU, because to be fair, the way it ends in Loki season 2, you can almost leave it that way, because Victor Timely's gone, He Who Remains is gone, Kang from Ant-Man, you can technically pass off that he's dead, even though at this moment in time he probably wasn't going to be.
Right.
So the only unresolved thread from the Kang storyline is the Council of Kangs. I heard rumours that if you were going to replace Kang with, say, Doctor Doom, that you could have Doom show up and destroy the Council of Kangs, which would be an ultimate power move that would then lead into him being in charge for Secret Wars. But if you're not going to go down that route, just have an episode of What If that wraps up the Kang storyline, and something happens in there that destroys the Council of Kangs or the Kang Prime, whoever was going to be in charge, and that way you can then move on from Kang without having to do anything in the main MCU timeline.
That's a great idea. That would solve so many issues you have with that casting there. I wonder if they have the balls to do it, but that would be a good idea. Well, but that would be such a good idea. That'd be just a straight, quick fix. But anyway, I love the King idea. That would be great. So they probably don't have the balls to do it, but they should. That would be a solid fix to it. Yeah. You got any other takes on this what if season before we head out of here for the night?
I think we've said it all, to be fair.
All right.
A couple of good episodes, maybe not quite as good and cohesive as season 1, but excited still for a season 3, and hoping that they give a few more interesting ideas, because like I said, you could come up with so many ideas. And the combinations of characters that you could actually put into episodes, because it's alternate timelines in the universe. So excited that we've got a series like this. We talk about a lot now the fact they've done a What If Marvel series. Why can't they do like a What If Star Wars or something like that? I don't think they will, because they'll keep this as a Marvel thing. But I'm excited that we've got a series like this, and it's leading to spin-offs. Like I said, we're getting the zombie series. The idea of then some of these characters have already, like Captain Carter herself, obviously made it into Multiverse of Madness. So they're using this as a branch out method as well, which I really like. They haven't just kept it as its own thing. They're using it to put other ideas out there in other shows and bring other characters forward as well, to explore the multiverse. So I've been really glad for it. And just hope that season 3 really, really does kick on as well, if it is the final season.
Yeah, I like that. I like that positivity. And you're right. Honestly, if you would ask me 5 years ago if I would have thought Marvel would have a What If series coming out with multiple seasons, I would have been ecstatic. And, like you said, it's still been good. Season 1 was better, but I'm thankful to just get some What If episodes. Even if only 3 or 4 of them I really, really like, it's still something. It's not, we're not taking up anything else. Well, why not? Why be upset about it? So I'm glad we even get these stories to be told too. And although they're not doing it perfectly for this season, they still are utilizing it in a really good way for the future of the MCU. So I'm glad it's here too. But I am waiting on that Star Wars one. I'm waiting. I don't think they'll do it either. But man, they could make some.
I would
cool
die
stuff
if they did a series like that, because it would be unbelievable.
Dude,
the first episode they're writing down is we're giving everyone what they want. So what if Anakin doesn't turn, or what if Anakin survives at the end of episode 3?
What if he wins?
Exactly. Speaking of which, I know it's a complete diversion from Marvel, but did you ever play the original Revenge of the Sith game that was brought out in
freaking amazing. Might be my favorite Star Wars game of all time.
Really? Oh, I never got around to playing it, and I found it on Xbox Store recently, so I've bought it and downloaded it. I haven't got around to playing it yet. What I did constantly see was the alternate ending at the end of the game.
Yes.
Where Anakin beats Kenobi, then the Emperor arrives with his guard of honor to congratulate Anakin, and Anakin does this flips his lightsaber up in the air and stabs the Emperor through the chest, and then he's like, "I'm in charge now. I'm the captain now."
Takes over.
And he's just unbelievable. I was like, "That's what we need as a What If episode, isn't it?" So.
No kidding. No, that when I watched that as a kid, I was like, oh, like it blew my mind. No, that I don't know how it holds up. I can't vouch for it now. But when it came out, that game was freaking amazing. When you beat it, you got a versus mode. So it was like, Mortal Kombat, you're setting up a 1v1, but the characters you could choose were, I think you could play as Revan. Like they had so many Sith and Jedi you could play against each other as, and you could play co-op, or split screen. The game was just a freaking blast as a kid. So
well, this is my Sunday decided.
Hey, there you go. I hope it holds up. I hope it does. I can't guarantee it, but yeah, they just need to make a hypothetical Tales of the Jedi. I guess if you can't use the what if name, we'll just call it hypothetical Tales of the Jedi. We'll move on, but. All right. Well, like you said, I think that'll wrap it up. I think we covered season 2 pretty well here tonight. Andy, thank you so much for doing this crossover episode again, for putting together another one. Tell the people where they can find you. Let's get those tags out.
No worries, mate. As always, an absolute pleasure. I love the Why So Serious podcast. Love you guys individually. It's always a pleasure to do these things with you. So, Galactic Core Podcast. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, which, to be honest, I just post episodes on there. I don't really do anything. I don't like any promotion on there anymore. Facebook kind of dying a death. But yeah, Instagram, TikTok are the two main ones where you'll find me at. I'm still trying to game occasionally on Twitch via the podcast channel. Get us on there. Obviously, tune into YouTube, trying to get that growing as well. So please give us a subscribe on YouTube. You can always catch the episodes on there, as well as catching them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other main places where you can catch us. What about you, Dave? Tell everyone where we can find the Why So Serious podcast.
Beautiful. Well, I got to start off with likewise back at you, man. You've been an awesome guest and an awesome host for us when we guest on your show. I love that we've found our shows, we've connected, and we've been collabing. It's been a pleasure. You can find us as well, Instagram, TikTok, and X, all at Why So Serious Pod. We did start a Facebook page. I don't think we've signed into it in months, so I don't think anything is on there. But we are also trying to break that YouTube barrier. We're putting full episodes on there, full videos, all that good stuff. Our mutual friend Lee over at Lights Camera Rant is absolutely freaking killing the YouTube game. This man went from like 1,000 to nearly 10,000 in a small amount of time. So he is an inspiration to all of us. I want to be like Lee. Go ahead and subscribe to both of us here on YouTube. Help us grow out there. And then same, all Spotify or all podcast platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple, all that good stuff. You can find us there. So as always, thank you for joining us here tonight, and we will see you next time on the Galactic Core Podcast / Why So Serious a Nerd Podcast. Good night.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to the Galactic Core Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. But until next time, go get your geek on.